He'll do 6 months basic training at Fort Chaffee.
The M24 Chaffee was developed during the final years of the Second World War to replace the aging M5 Stuart. Designed from the ground up, it combines sloped armour, a smooth torsion bar suspension and a powerful 75mm gun derived from the M6 aircraft cannon used on the B-25 Mitchell, giving crews a huge improvement in firepower without sacrificing the speed and agility expected of a reconnaissance tank. Now, although it arrived in Europe too late to significantly influence the war, the Chaffee quickly proved itself during the Battle of the Bulge and went on to enjoy a remarkable post-war career. It served throughout the Korean War and remained in military service with many nations for decades, with some upgraded examples still in frontline use into the 1990s. Now, it's always exciting to have a new Tamiya kit in my hands, even if I'm a little late to this party. So today I'm going to take a look at it for you and talk through some of the details to think about on these pieces. Tamiya's 35th scale M24 Chaffee European Theatre kit finally gives modelers a modern state-of-the-art representation of this awesome little vehicle. And make no mistake, this isn't a rebox like the 2015 kit was. That used Italeri plastic. This one, however, is a completely newly tooled kit and it looks really appealing indeed. Tamiya's plain white box art is instantly recognisable, isn't it? And it is always so hard to resist. I remember as a kid standing in the hobby store aisle studying every side of these boxes, agonising over the choice I'd have to make, and looking at this box reminded me of just how enjoyable that was. These instructions in these kits are always easy to follow, with 38 steps in total for this kit. It comes with a separate flyer covering a brief history of the tank, and the 3 schemes and marking callouts are presented there in full colour. You can have any colour as long as it's olive drab. Looking at the parts on the sprues is always one of the things I enjoy most about buying a new kit, so I'll share with you some of the things I like with this one and some of the things I think could use some improvement. Tamiya seem to be able to get the feel and flow of the fabric elements in this build, which traditionally has been a tricky thing to do with injection moulding. Organic flowing elements add so much to a model, so I wanted to point these out. The flow of fabric carries over to these figures and the thoughtful way that they've been engineered. The uniforms look beautiful and the two halves should piece together where a natural seam line would sit. The faces are fairly generic though and quite expressionless. I always feel these faces in these new Tamiya kits is a bit of a missed opportunity for them. The Chaffee had quite prominent weld seams, in particular around the turret joins. This is an element I feel Tamiya have missed an opportunity here to create something special with very little thought gone into the sculpting and moulding of these details. It all just feels a little sanitised, or maybe a bit of a box ticking exercise. The turret and hatches have a very light cast texture to them. That could be enhanced by stippling putty on if you were that way inclined. In fairness though, the finish on the actual tank itself was reasonably refined compared to some of the other tanks of the time. Tamiya have moulded all of the tie downs and the loops and whatnot into the track guards and other areas around the model and simplified the build. This is an area that could use a bit of an upgrade for those of you out there looking to level up this build. The tools and radio, however, are nicely resolved and should look good under paint. The engine deck and the roof of that casemate is moulded in a single piece with a reasonable level of detail, and again all of those tie downs are moulded directly into this piece and present as just lumps rather than actual looped tie downs. It's kind of standard practice and what a lot of the other manufacturers do. The floor section and walls are the standard style of construction for this type of thing, with again a reasonable level of detail on all these parts. It's a shame the tiny grab handles here on the sprue that you see weren't attached to those sprue gates, and they will require very careful cleanup. However, the scale and the refinement in the part look quite nice. The tracks come in the kit as a link and length style and look a little underwhelming. However, I'll reserve judgment because parts like this can always look a bit odd in that green plastic. There are a lot of ejector pin marks on the underside of the track. However, I suspect a lot of these may get covered with the wheels, so again, I'll reserve judgment. The wheels are the usual style with the two halves coming together, and the drive sprockets come with the poly caps to provide some movement in that part when installing those tracks. A small piece of stainless etch with a bending jig in the kit to simplify the process should add a nice level of detail to that part. In the interests of a thorough review, I've built the kit for you and I will share some brief thoughts around it. I am planning, however, on building this one out of the box and producing a tutorial series with the beginner in mind, so stay tuned for that one. In typical style, the construction begins with the floor and the walls for the underside. My parts were slightly warped, but could be manhandled in place using a quick setting modelling cement. One thing I will say is if something isn't fitting properly, check that you've cleaned your parts well, because the tolerances are pretty tight and any remaining sprue gate on the part will affect the fit. Generally speaking, if the Tamiya fit is fighting you,
that's on you.
The suspension setup is adequate, and the way the connection points are engineered make it just about impossible to get anything wrong. The suspension is fixed, however, so you'll need to be having your model on level ground without serious modification. When installing your wheels, be mindful that one of those sets of wheels has connection points for the pins that are on the track. They will be toward the rear of the model, and it's important not to mix them up. The link and length tracks have a suggested build order in the instructions. However, I chose to build them in small sections and leave them with an open point so that they can be removed for painting. And after me saying that Tamiya kits are pretty much idiot proof, I fit the wrong mudguards on the wrong track guard piece, so be sure to use the correct piece combinations. I have to pull them off and swap them over later in this build. The various handles and guards need to be cleaned with a blade, so great care must be taken there not to damage them. The guards from the headlights, though, stood out like broken thumbs and looked horribly overscale to my eye. I feel like Tamiya could have done a little bit better here. The other thing I don't understand is you get a clear sprue for some of the clear elements around the model, obviously, but for the periscopes for the driver and radio operator, they've given them as solid pieces. I don't understand why they wouldn't have been included on that clear sprue. In terms of build experience, this really is a user-friendly little kit that can be easily finished over a rainy weekend for most modelers, and the little bits and pieces that I've pointed out as potential shortcomings probably aren't going to bother the weekend modeler. For those of you who want to upgrade the build though, this represents the perfect platform to do it. I don't know too many people who don't get a little excited when Tamiya announce a new kit, even if the subject isn't something that necessarily appeals to them. As most of you know, the Tamiya build experience is something that a lot of other manufacturers just fail to replicate, which makes Tamiya just about the perfect choice for modelers of every skill level. And lastly, to my Patreons, you guys absolutely mean the world to me, and I'm so grateful to have you in my corner. If you're out there watching this and you're able to help and keep this content flowing, please consider giving the page a visit and connect in with all that additional content over there. Remember guys, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
Can you drive me to the hobby shop tonight?
I understand none of that, but I feel good saying no.